Hey guys, how's it going? I'm gonna be having my good buddy Pigskin Pete. He's gonna call into the show in about a minute. So I wanted everybody here to pay attention to the show, which again I really do appreciate everybody coming into the show. I'm gonna have this LSU background. I don't know why, but I'm gonna have it, and basically I am going to give the number to. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm gonna try to call him. Trying to call up my good buddy Pigskin Pete. Trying to call him. I'm calling him right now.
Hey.
Oh, Pete,
hey, you hear me?
Pete.
Hey, you hear me?
I do. You're coming through loud and clear, sir.
All right.
Guess what? I think we're live.
All right. Do you want me to turn the video on or no?
I just won't be able to get to. I don't know how to put the video on.
All right.
If that makes sense, but let me just make sure that we are live, and oh, I see you, man. I see you. Do you see me?
Hold on. Let me turn the
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's good that you see me at least, man.
Yeah.
It looks like. Hold on. Let me make sure that we are on right here. Oh, by the way, Vol Roadshow is in the Vol Roadshow is currently in the chat.
Oh, he is.
Same with Bad Dog as well. I want to get Bad Dog on my channel, but you know Mr. Bad Dog?
Yeah, I know who he is.
Oh, great. Yeah. So Pete, man, how has everything been with YouTube? I haven't spoken to you in a little while. I mean, how has your December been with having Clemson in the Cotton Bowl?
I mean, not any, much different than when they're not in the Cotton Bowl, I guess. You know how the YouTube thing is, man. It's a grind.
Oh, absolutely. Were you surprised that you landed in Dallas instead of the Orange Bowl?
I wasn't, because of Alabama playing Oklahoma. So I figured that Alabama would, since they're the first seed, they get first pick, and I think they would want to pick something further away from Oklahoma. So.
And you know what? You know what's also a point that nobody really analyzes is that, you know, when you play in your hometown a lot, like as an athlete, you could start to press a lot. And Hollywood Brown is from Miami,
right?
So he might be really nervous playing home.
Yeah, and I'm glad Clemson's playing in the Cotton Bowl. I think Jerry's word's cool, first of all.
Yes.
And we haven't played in the Cotton Bowl in, I think, like 30 years or something. So.
Yeah, so, I mean, the fact is, like, you guys are playing Notre Dame, and, you know, when I look at Notre Dame, like, a lot of people are just expecting you guys to wipe the floor with Notre Dame. Do you also agree that you guys are going to wipe the floor with the Irish?
No, my official prediction was a 7-point victory over Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's way underrated. I think that they don't get enough credit for being a 12-0 team playing in teams against 4 different conferences. I mean, that's not easy to do. I don't care. I realize they had some struggle wins against some marginal teams, but They're a legit football team, and they can beat anybody on any given day. So I don't take Notre Dame lightly at all.
So now, so now you are so you don't like that everybody's like shitting on Notre Dame, right? Is that kind of like where you're at? Like you're a little nervous that everybody just keeps on tossing them under the scrap heap a little bit?
No, I mean, I could care less what they say about them because I'm not a fan of Notre Dame. I just feel differently. That's all. I just feel like people are not giving Notre Dame as much respect as they actually deserve. And I don't take them lightly. I know there are a lot of Clemson fans out there that do and think that we're just going to kill them, but I'm not one of them.
I would love nothing more than for you guys to pummel Brian Kelly and just send them right back to, because if Notre Dame gets killed, then they might have to join a conference at that point.
Yeah, no, they won't join a conference until they get left out for having a loss. And, that might happen next year or the year after. It eventually will happen. But if you talk to the people that are like really in the know as far as Notre Dame's program goes, they're not in any hurry to join a conference. They want to remain independent as long as they possibly can.
Do you think that this is – where would you rank this Clemson team in terms of best teams that you've ever seen in your life for Clemson?
Well, that's tough because it's easy to say that the team that won the national championship or even the team the year before that was the national championship would be the best one of my lifetime. So I was 1 year old whenever they won their first national championship. So I can't speak on that because I was only a baby. But between then and now, I would honestly say that the team they have this year is probably from top to bottom, roster-wise, personnel-wise, the best team in my life. Certainly in the past 20 years. And the only difference is we don't have a Deshaun Watson experienced Heisman candidate quarterback leading the charge, but our defense is way better than it was in 2016. Our offense, top to bottom, is way better at the receiver core, the running back position, much better than it was in 2016. So the only real difference is that we don't have Watson. We have a true freshman at quarterback.
Right, and I'm just getting my laptop all charged up. But imagine if Trevor Lawrence goes first round. The running back you guys have, who's the running back you guys have is tremendous. Is he going to be like an NFL player next year?
Well, he's got one more year. He'll play next year at Clemson. Mm-hmm. He's a true sophomore, but yeah, he'll be a first round NFL running back for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, the entire team, maybe the wide receivers are not as good as a couple of years ago. Maybe that's the only position. But
they're better. They're just younger, but they're better.
Wow. So they're coming, these wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, you got Higgins, you got Justin Ross, you've got Amari Rodgers. These guys are all first, second round picks at receiver. There's not a receiver core in America that's as deep as Clemson's.
Pretty amazing what Dabo has done there. We have a lot of people, on my channel that are all NFL draft. Everybody's, loves the NFL draft. A lot of Giants fans, for the Giants, our off season starts pretty early nowadays. So at Clemson, we have you have Farrell, who's a great defensive end. And then I think, who's the other guy that's getting mentioned on the defensive line? You have Farrell, who's an end, and then who else is?
Well, Dexter Lawrence is that guy's a monster of a human being. He'll probably end up being, and there's conflicting reports on which one of these guys is going to go first, but there's three of them. You have Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, and Cleveland Farrell are all going to go in the first round. It's just a matter of where they're going to go in the first round. At least two of them, probably three of them, will be taken in the top 15 overall, which would be the first time that's ever happened from three defensive linemen from one team being taken in the top 15. And there's a fourth one is Austin Bryant, and he's got an early second round grade. So anyway, what you have there is you have the entire starting defensive line for Clemson is going to go in the first round or early in the second round of the draft.
Which is unbelievable. So if you guys play Alabama you're convinced that you guys can get pressure on the quarterback like Tagovailoa or Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody that we can't get pressure on. The real question is on the back end. It's the cornerback, not the cornerback play as much as the linebacker play and the safety play. The safety is the weakest position on Clemson's team. Is why you see a lot of big plays over the middle. That's what South Carolina did. They just attacked our safeties, and they ended up scoring 35 points on us. Now, they still lost by 3 touchdowns, but they scored more points on us than any other team by a long shot this year. But, yeah, getting pressure on Ian Book or Tua is not going to be a problem. But if they're able to give him 2 or 3 seconds to either get out of the pocket or just make a quick pass, then that's where it could get shaky for Clemson's defense.
So Vol Roadshow is coming in to the chat, our good buddy Catfish, and he says that Tennessee stole 2 receivers from you guys.
Stole them from where?
Maybe in the recruiting.
Oh, I don't know. Listen, we're so stacked at receiver. I don't know how you can steal anything. It sounds to me like they got our leftovers.
Yeah, no, of course, Jeremy Pruitt, and that's what everybody's getting now is Clemson's leftovers. You guys, what did you finish on Wednesday? Number 7 in the country?
Who, us?
Yes, Clemson.
Oh yeah, we right now we're 5. We started at 6 and we moved up to 5 with the addition of a couple of offensive linemen out of Florida.
Gotcha. So, yeah, you guys had a really decent signing class. I want to get your thoughts on a couple of other ACC programs. Again, we're talking to Pigskin Pete. I'm going to post his link down here. He's so kind to come on the show, preview the college football playoff here, and it's great having you on. Are you going to be streaming all these playoff games? What's your schedule like on your channel?
Yeah, so I'm going to do the Pinstripe Bowl between Wisconsin and Miami. I'll be doing that game live. I'm also going to do the West Virginia and Syracuse game. That's the next day. That's on Friday. And then I'm most likely not going to do a stream for Clemson and Notre Dame because it's going to be too hard for me to pay attention to broadcasting whenever I'm watching that game.
Way too emotional.
Yeah, but if I don't do that game, which I probably won't, then I will try to do the Oklahoma and Alabama game. And then I may do some New Year's Day games, too. I haven't decided that yet.
Especially if Clemson wins.
Right.
Don't do the national championship if Clemson's in it, or are you going to do that?
I don't know. I just want to get past this Cotton Bowl game before I even think about that.
Right. It's a one game at a time sort of mentality, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
It's one game at a time. We're talking here, Pigskin Pete. I'm gonna ask you about a couple other ACC programs, and then we'll go to Cam Newton in Carolina here while we have you. What do you think about the Jeff Collins hire at Georgia Tech?
I think that's exactly what they needed. I mean, listen, the jury's still out on whether or not he'll be able to build a team in the ACC that can compete. But that's this sort of same situation as almost every single team in the ACC. They're all chasing Clemson. It's just like every team in the SEC is chasing Alabama. So, but to get away from Paul Johnson and that triple option offense, I think is a huge step forward. Also, Jeff Collins is a Georgia Tech guy. He grew up in the Atlanta area. He's a graduate of Georgia Tech. So they finally got somebody in there that actually has a emotional interest in being the Georgia Tech head coach. And I think that will help them in recruiting. And also, I think he's a really good coach. So I think that's a great hire. Now, if they go 4 or 5 years and they don't even compete for winning the division or winning the ACC, then it might be time to move on. But as things look right now, I can't imagine a better hire for what they need.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love the Jeff Collins hire. I think it's one of the best hires. I mean, he certainly won the press conference. The guy's a great speaker. And now finally they're going to be moving towards like some semblance of a modernized offense. I mean,
exactly.
I can't believe Georgia Tech kept Paul Johnson around. I could never even watch their games because it made me nauseous watching that triple option stuff, you know? So,
well, if you really want to piss some people off, just go on YouTube and tell them that Paul Johnson's a joke, and then you'll get about 100 comments in a minute telling you how stupid you are.
That's funny. You know, there's some hotbeds out there on YouTube, like Sam Darnold. I'm in the Sam Darnold hotbed right now because I've said that he's not very good.
Yeah.
So I'm in that one. Lamar Jackson, I still don't believe is going to be very good at the NFL level.
Yeah, both of those guys, I feel like. Now, I will say, I don't know if you remember this, but we did a preseason video talking about the NFL before the season started, and we had a pretty at-length discussion about Lamar Jackson. And I said that I thought that he possibly could succeed as a quarterback. You said he absolutely couldn't. Mm-hmm. And I do think that he does have a chance. Now, I don't think he's ever going to be, Tom Brady or a Drew Brees or somebody like that. But I think he has a chance to be a viable starter in a certain type of system for at least a few years and win some games. It's the jury's still out on him. It's just he's got all the physical tools. It's just we don't know how much he's got above the neck as far as running an offense.
Yeah, and who knows how he will be able to throw the football. That's the real question, and hopefully Saturday night we actually see him throwing the damn ball.
Yeah, and that's going to come with time. If he does end up becoming some sort of a pocket passer, which he'll never be a pure pocket passer, but if he's ever going to step into at least a role where he can be a threat from the pocket, that's not going to happen this year. It's just not. That's going to happen next year or the year after if he lasts that long.
Who's in more trouble, Louisville or Mark Richt in Miami?
Mark Richt in Miami. And that's the only reason I say that is because Louisville, they have no expectations right now. They've got a brand new head coach who they're going to give at least 3 or 4 years, most likely.
Who's
Mark,
not that exciting of a hire either.
No, but I think that they made the right move. I mean, being that Jeff Brom gave them the middle finger, mm-hmm. And I think they made a good hire, considering that Brom turned that job down. I mean, first of all, who are you going to get to go there at this point? Because the program personnel-wise is in shambles. Now, as far as the athletic department goes, a lot of people don't understand that when Louisville joined the ACC a few years ago and made the jump from a Group of 5 team to a Power 5 team, they spent a lot of money upgrading their stadium, their facilities. They made a huge financial commitment to their football program. They don't want to just be a basketball school. And you saw a couple of years of success there with Petrino and Lamar Jackson. Of course, that all came crumbling down this year. But I think if you get the right guy in there who can recruit, and I do think that guy from Appalachian State is a really good coach, and he's a young coach too. And he's proven that he's a winner. He hasn't proven he can win in a Power 5 head coaching position, but all the pieces are in place there for him to do it. It's just going to take him a little while to rebuild the roster. The roster's terrible right now. I mean, terrible.
Yeah, and the thing is, Petrino just completely dogged that school at the end. It's really unbelievable how Petrino every single time just bottoms out, and I think Petrino's probably done now. What do you think? Yeah,
I mean, who's going to hire him? Not in a Power 5 league. He's not getting hired. Not as a head coach, anyway.
I think Hugh Freeze has a much better chance of getting hired.
Yeah, I do too. But I think probably both those guys have a much better shot at getting a coordinator position than they do a head coaching job at this point.
I'm going to ask you about a couple of other hires here. We're here with Pigskin Pete. I think Kansas State made a pretty weak hire from the North Dakota State job, and the Texas Tech hire, Matt Wells, could be pretty good. But one of my favorite hires was Will Healy going to Charlotte. I mean, what were some of your favorite hires in college football with the carousel?
So I think that the Cliff Kingsbury offensive coordinator job to USC is huge. And if you look at what Oregon's doing right now as far as their recruiting, which they're recruiting at a level that they've never recruited at before, even when Chip Kelly was there and competing for national championships, a team like USC, they need an offense. And they've got a really good young quarterback, but they just need a coordinator. So I think Cliff Kingsbury being OC at USC is huge. Mm-hmm. I also do like the Kansas State hire, the North Dakota State coach. And I mean, they could have hired a scarecrow. It wouldn't have mattered because the guy that was, coaching there for the past 30 years, he was stalled out. And believe me, I got a lot of heat from Kansas State fans. I made several Bill Snyder videos on YouTube, and they come out of the woodwork and start saying, you don't realize how good of a coach Bill Snyder is. He's a great guy. He took Kansas State from irrelevant to, a bowl-winning team. And I'm like, that's great for the first 10 years, but when you haven't won but one conference championship in 30 years, is that your expectation? It's time to move on from the guy. The guy's 80 years old. So I never got it. I mean, I got why they hired him and why they kept him for 15 years, but I don't understand why he stayed there for so long. So, but anyway, somebody that can win at a high level in the FCS, even several national championships, is the perfect guy. And out of North Dakota, too, that's the other thing, because to recruit at somewhere like Kansas State is not easy. It's a hard place to recruit because of your geographic location. And I think that he had that same sort of issue in North Dakota, because who lives in North Dakota? Nobody, right? Right. So he's got sort of an understanding of how to recruit in a place that's hard to get players in, number one. And number two, I think his system fits the Big 12 perfectly. It's going to be a high-flying offense that scores a lot of points, and that fits right into the Big 12.
I don't know about that, though, because at North Dakota State, that is the Alabama of the FCS, so it's not that hard to win at North Dakota State. I mean, even Craig Bohl was able to win there at North Dakota State. I wanted to see them get maybe Neil Brown from Troy, or I wanted to see them get like maybe Seth Luttrell from North Texas. The coach, he's a very boring old white dude coach, the guy at Kansas State. I'll tell you that much right now, the guy from North Dakota State. So I think Kansas State is still going to be irrelevant. I like the Les Miles hire a hell of a lot better than right up the road in Manhattan, Kansas.
I mean, you could call Nick Saban a boring old white guy too, but all the guy does is win, And so, I mean, I don't think that even if it's at the FCS level, it's not easy to win 6 national titles in 7 years. So I believe he's a good, as far as X's and O's go, he's a good coach, and we know that he can recruit, at least at the FCS level. Right. I do agree though that
it's
the
kind
Troy,
of like a wait and see, but it's not a sexy name at all. Like I don't know, like Neil Brown or one of these other guys would have been more fun for Manhattan. I don't know.
Yeah, and of course, I don't really know, to be honest, how many different people they reached out to in the first place, that maybe turned them down, because that's a hard job. Kansas State's a hard job. But I'd rather have that guy than Les Miles. Les Miles got a short shelf life. This guy's got a longer coaching career after the next couple of years than Les Miles does.
All righty, then. We got Pigskin Pete here. I'm going to ask you one more question. We have a guy coming in. He's a huge Big Ten guy. Do you ever see the ACC being able to stack up with the Big Ten? Like, you ever see Fuente getting it together? You ever see Florida State maybe competing and getting better? I mean, sell me on the ACC right now, because I was really shocked at how poorly Fuente did last year.
All right, so the ACC had a down year this year, and nobody's going to dispute that, including me. But how about let's flip the question around. Somebody convinced me that the Big Ten is good. What have they done in recent years? I mean, they're not making the playoffs. When they do make the playoffs, they get shut out 2 years in a row. I mean, outside of Ohio State this year and Michigan for the majority of the year, who else in the Big Ten was a national threat to anybody? Nobody was. So I don't think that the Big Ten is near as good as people think they are, and the records prove it. Otherwise, they'd be in the playoffs right now.
Pete, I wanted to, I'll argue for the Big Ten real quick. I love Nebraska. I love where they're going. I love where Minnesota's going. Penn State has James Franklin, who's pretty decent. I mean, the totality of the conference is still pretty good. Like, I know Michigan wasn't great against Ohio State, but Ryan Day's not going to be a terrible replacement. I think the Big Ten is so deep right now. You talked about Jeff Brom earlier. I think the Big Ten is really deep.
So name me 2 teams other than Ohio State and Michigan where you can make that argument.
I think that in the next 3 years, either Minnesota or Nebraska will be in the college football playoff and will be competing for championships.
All right, so you're talking about 2 bottom-dwelling teams that haven't done crap in 100 years that's who you're hanging your hat on as far as carrying the Big Ten.
Yes, it's just you. Well, in the ACC, it's just you guys right now. Who else is going to be up there in the
ACC? I agree. It is Clemson and everybody else right now. But for the past 30 years, Florida State has been a top 5 program until these past couple of years. And I'm not debating that the ACC is not good. I'm debating whether or not the Big Ten's any better, and that's what I'm saying.
Well. But from a depth standpoint, it's so good. I think it might be the best conference from a depth standpoint.
So the team that represented the Big Ten in the West for the Big Ten championship was a 4-loss team that didn't win a single out-of-conference game, that got beat by 3 touchdowns by Duke in Northwestern. So that's how deep they are.
No, but you have to give Fleck and Scott Frost time to build.
Yeah, but you're willing to give these teams like Nebraska and Minnesota credit for something that they haven't done yet. I'm not doing that until they can prove it.
Well, Purdue also, Purdue lost a lot of out-of-conference games, but Purdue, they were very close to making noise, or competing. Northwestern's also a very good program with Fitzgerald. I really do think Northwestern's good. They might have been second in the ACC. Really. But, yeah, we're talking about the Big Ten right now, I know.
But if Northwestern would be the second in the ACC, then why did they get beat by the 8th best team by 3 touchdowns in the ACC? And also, why did they not win a single out-of-conference game this year? The only games they won were in the Big Ten.
I could argue that was early in the season.
All right. Well, here's my point. I agree that the ACC is not good right now. It's Clemson and everybody else. I would make the argument that in the Big Ten, it's Ohio State, Michigan, and everybody else. I would argue that in the Big 12, it's Oklahoma and Texas and everybody else. The Pac-12 is a complete mess. Yeah. It's basically Oregon and maybe Washington and everybody else. And the SEC this year is far and away the best conference. They've got probably 3 teams that could compete with anybody nationally. But as a whole, there's not much separation between these conferences at the top. It's just you can make an argument for the middle and the bottom teams in all these conferences, and then there's the SEC. So, I don't know. I just don't see it when people say that the Big Ten is the toughest conference. There's nothing to prove that. You can't point at one single game or a group of games that they played this year out of conference that can prove that.
The athletes in the SEC and at Clemson, that's where the Big Ten is going to have. That's where the Big Ten is going to have to catch up. I believe it's all about projecting forward, and the direction right now of Florida State and Miami and these programs. It's going to be interesting to see if the ACC can continue to. It's going to be interesting to see if the ACC can keep pace with the Big Ten, because right now you guys are very similar. Syracuse, I love what Dino's doing, but I think that the Big Ten's going to be very good in a couple of years. Do you think the Big Ten's going to be good in a couple of years, like Nebraska, if you had to project Nebraska in these teams?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, first of all, I like Scott Frost as a coach. I do think he's going to be able to do very good things there. Again, I'm not going to give him credit for something he hasn't done yet, so we'll see. But here's the thing is, if you just go year to year, there's always teams that come from sort of obscurity to becoming relevant, and that happens in every conference. So I think that although that you see teams like Florida State are down right now this year and last year, I don't think Florida State's just going to go away and become some irrelevant team for the next 20 years. I do think that they are, first of all, being the university that they are, the state that they're in, they're going to be able to recruit well, despite the fact that they're having a bad time right now. I don't think that Miami's just going to fall off the map either. Miami could come back. Listen, Miami came out of nowhere last year and was as high as number 4 in the country. They came out of nowhere. And so places like NC State and Syracuse, these are teams that are getting better year by year and recruiting better year by year. And so, the ACC next year could have 3 great teams for all we know. They could have 1 great team. They could have no great teams. And the same goes for the Big 10, the Big 12, and everybody else.
Yeah, and you live close to the Sam Howell kid. I mean, he went to Mac Brown in North Carolina?
Yeah.
That was an interesting one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised about that at all, though.
because you don't know about Fields and Taggart and everything going down.
Yeah, well, first of all, I was not surprised at all that Fields was leaving. I would be a little bit surprised if he went to Florida State. I think more likely that he goes to Ohio State, and why wouldn't he? I mean, the talent on Ohio State right now is, in the top 5 in the country roster-wise. And I've also heard Oklahoma being mentioned, and with the Spencer Rattler kid coming in there, I don't know if Fields wants to go and put himself in another situation just like he had with Jake Fromm as far as trying to compete for that job. If he ends up at Florida State, though, that would be one hell of a pickup for them.
Well, they do have Francois over there, so you might have to wait.
Yeah, and Francois hasn't really decided whether he's coming back or not, so that's another.
But neither is Haskins. And then I don't know if you know this kid, Tate Martell from the Netflix series. He's a wild kid. You know Martell at Ohio State?
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, Justin Fields, Uncle Lou hit that right on the head, that they literally did not let him throw the ball at all at Georgia.
Yeah, that's why I'm not surprised that he's leaving, because it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to sit you for a year or redshirt you or just use you in certain packages. And, I mean, most freshmen, that's what you have to do. But whenever you do get actual playing time and the only thing you do when you come in there is hand the ball off or do a couple of quarterback draws, no 5-star elite passing quarterback is going to stick around and sit on the bench for 3 years handing the ball off in the fourth quarter. It's just not going to happen. I mean, that might have happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but in today's day and age with transferring and the new redshirt rule and everything, these players are not sitting around sitting on the bench. And I don't really blame them, actually.
I hated but even when I didn't like when Fields even came in for Georgia, because it would really, for Jake Fromm, it would piss me off if I were Fromm to have this kid come in and then defenses just stack the box. Like, I think that he should have just played in the second half and not even come into the game at all. I hate the quarterback carousel.
Well, I don't even like the 2 quarterbacks playing in the same game, period. We saw that with Clemson this year for the first 4 games between Lawrence and Kelly Bryant before Kelly Bryant left, right?
Right.
And those were probably the 4 worst games that Clemson played all year. And because you can't get in a rhythm, you've got the quarterbacks are splitting team reps between the first team. They're splitting teams in actual playing time, and you can't get into a certain rhythm with the receivers and the quarterback. I don't like it. I never did like it. It never has worked. I mean, people say they'll pull out one random year. Well, the year that Florida won the national championship with Tebow and the other guy, that was a 2-quarterback system. All right. So it happened one time in the past 100 years. Can you list like 3 or 4 times in history where that's actually worked? More times than not, it does not work, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I can't even think of another example other than Leak and Tebow. Like who else? You can't even name one.
It doesn't work. It's one thing to bring a guy in for a certain wildcat package or something, a couple of times a game, but to be splitting reps, 70-30, 60-40, or 50-50, it never works ever.
Yeah, you know what's funny about the Clemson quarterbacks is that even Hunter Johnson, I think he's going to be really good at Northwestern.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. I mean, that kid was a 5-star recruit, the number 1 recruit in the country, quarterback for that year that he came out and signed with Clemson. Now, he sort of walked into a buzzsaw. He was the year after Deshaun Watson won the national championship and left for the NFL. And then you had Kelly Bryant, who was a junior who had been sitting behind Deshaun Watson for 2 years and had a lot of meaningful snaps, over those 2 years, and was much more experienced. And then on the heels of that, you have the number 1 recruit in the country, or number 2, however you want to look at it, and Trevor Lawrence coming in behind you. I mean, this guy never had a chance, really, to be the starter at Clemson. So
no, he did.
Yeah, but he's a great player. I think he'll be great at Northwestern.
I watch a lot of college football like yourself, and I even look at Joe Burrow and I look at the quarterbacks Arkansas had, and even Nick Fitzgerald. I think that Chase Bryce is clearly capable of being a starter at the Division I level. I mean, just from the throws he made against Syracuse. I think that was a hell of a pickup for you guys. Yeah,
I mean, Chase, first of all, Clemson's not going to be recruiting any bad quarterbacks. I mean, they're just not. So he's a good player. He played great in a clutch time in a game that they absolutely needed to win when Trevor Lawrence went down. And that game could have easily been lost if it weren't for him. But there's just not enough real game time to make a determination of how great of a player he would be if he was a full-time starter.
Right.
Now, I have confidence in him. If something were to happen to Lawrence, I have full confidence that Chase Bryce could come in and run that offense and do good. But if you're going to put him on a scale next to Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or even Jake Fromm, I don't really think there's a comparison. He's not as good as those guys are.
Right on. Pigskin Pete, thanks so much for joining me, man. I really love the chat, and can't wait to talk to you as these college football playoffs continue to develop and ongoing into the NFL playoffs.
Yeah, man, anytime. It's been good chopping it up with you. Anytime.
All righty. Pigskin Pete joins me, just joined the show. He is a great YouTuber, one of my favorite people. It's great that we can meet on this Friday to talk about the playoff. And man, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to make a music video. Thanks, Ventura, for hanging. We got 5 people on the chat. I'm going to retitle the show right now. It's going to be called What NFL Teams Need Changes. There we go. So Pigskin Pete came and went. He did a tremendous job. I'll leave the link down to his channel. Everybody should go subscribe to him. He's fantastic. It's great doing work with him. I'm going to go and adjust some things. I'm going to turn down the lights in this room so you guys can see me. And then what I am going to do is I'm going to go on a little soliloquy about the, you know what I'm going to do, 20 Savage? I think that's you. You are a Texas Longhorn fan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what NFL teams need changes. I'm going to talk about the worst NFL franchises in football. And this live stream might even go 2 hours. It might be crazy. Anybody could give super chats, of course. We have 5 people watching the show. It's unbelievable. I'm so thankful for all you guys. And let's change the thumbnail up, make it look even better. I'm going to have a photo of the Detroit Lions as my thumbnail for the what teams need changes. So it's going to be good. I'm charging my laptop right now, and we are all hanging out. You know, some teams, you know, some NFL teams, I'll tell you, they have, or some YouTube channels, they have a 24-hour live stream of YouTube. And it's just like a 24-hour loop and there's nothing really going on in that live stream. It's just the channel's always live and it's always pre-recorded. But G-Man 409, thanks so much. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for coming on the show, man. I can't wait for our Colts game. I'm just waiting to get to Saturday. I'm waiting to get to the NFL. I'm waiting so much to get to the season. Getting a Detroit Lions tab right now. Might get a glass of water. I ain't got no hurry in the world. I'm not doing anything on a Friday night. Heck no. What are you guys doing on Friday? Where does Le'Veon Bell sign? I don't think he signs with the 49ers. Let's get Le'Veon Bell to the New York Jets. But you guys are going to be fine. Like, Ventura, you're a big Steelers fan. Like, everybody's shitting on the Steelers, thinking you guys are just going to lose to the Saints. Everybody's taking you guys for granted. Everybody like El Presidor is talking smack about how the Steelers are done this year. I think that that's totally false. Totally 1,000% false. I think the Steelers still have a chance to win a playoff game, and then you take Big Ben and that defense anywhere. I think Big Ben's arm strength is still there. I like the Steelers, by the way. I think everybody's undervaluing that football team. I'm curious to see what you think. I mean, yeah, this week against the Saints, it's going to be a very hard game. I mean, the Saints have a ton of momentum. The Saints can win in a multitude of ways. So you're picking the Saints. That line's at 6 points. So if the Saints win by a touchdown, you're going to win. I think getting it at the 6 is also a good. I don't think that's a bad play at all, sir. So anyway, I updated the thumbnail. I'm going to turn down the lights, and things are going to get crazy in here. So let's freaking do it. Yeah, I do. I'm still recording though. No, they're perfect. Okay. Doing like a 2-hour live stream here. Yeah? Everybody can hear the conversation I'm having. Yeah, how was your trip? Yeah, I think that the Ravens are going to lose to the Chargers as well. All right, guys, let's go. 20 more minutes left in the live stream. I want to thank Pigskin Pete again for coming into the show, and I'll increase my vantage point with you guys. All righty. So I'm just going to rant here. I hope you guys can all hear me appropriately. I'm going to rant now about what NFL franchises that I think are hopeless going forward. The number one team that I think is hopeless is the Miami Dolphins. I think the Dolphins have no direction. The Dolphins have a terrible head coach in Adam Gase. Their owner, Wayne Huizenga, has no idea what he's doing. Ryan Tannehill is absolutely garbage. Their running backs are all really old. You know, maybe Kenyon Drake's a decent player. Their wide receivers, Albert Wilson's okay. Mike Gesicki is a complete project. Their defensive line is getting old. They have no linebackers to speak of. They only have Minkah Fitzpatrick on the back end. Their team is terrible. No direction, no heart, no urgency. Tannehill is garbage. Their coach is absolutely terrible, Adam Gase. He has no personality at all. The Dolphins are a complete and total catastrophe. They're a joke. They are purgatory. They're not going anywhere. They completely suck. I agree, Mr. Scott. Stephen Ross, terrible, pitiful organization and a franchise. Now for the next franchise I'm going to talk about, the Detroit Lions. The Lions have a terrible quarterback. The Fords are not great owners for football. The attendance at the Ford Field is not very good, okay? The city of Detroit is doing a little bit better than it's recently been doing, but it's still not a city that is, it's still not economically that successful, Detroit, Michigan. I'm not saying anything that controversial with that statement. I hate Jim Bob Cooter. They've never been able to develop a running game. Kerryon Johnson's a good enough player. Kenny Golladay. They need a quarterback that actually cares. And you know what? I don't mind their general manager, Bob Quinn, but Matt Patricia does not know how to connect with players. It's been a disaster first year for Matt Patricia. He's not getting along with these players at all. It's a complete clash of personalities between him and Stafford, and it's a complete dumpster fire. It's a horrible organization with a terrible direction. I am going to put the Detroit Lions on my list for a disastrous franchise, and they are hopeless right now. They're going to need to probably, my first move would be getting rid of Matthew Stafford. I think he's the most overrated quarterback maybe in the history of the league. The guy's never even come close to winning a playoff game. He constantly gets so many excuses from Lions fans. I'm so tired of seeing his pick sixes. He gets a free pass. He's a talented quarterback, but up here, he has no heart. He has no competitive edge. He has no leadership skills. He pisses me the F off. I wonder if you guys feel the same way. Ventura, let's freaking go. Let's get Stafford the hell out. Number 3, these teams can all be number 1 on my list. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati. I'll go with a little bit more controversial one, and then I'll take the obvious one. Let's go with the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have a quarterback in Lamar Jackson that within 3 years, he's going to be out of the league, okay? He's kind of like a Tim Tebow. He's not a consistent enough thrower of the ball to maintain over 16 games of a season. They have an old defense with Suggs and Eric Weddle, and they do have a good Marlon Humphrey is a good cornerback. Jimmy Smith, who knows where he's going to be going? Who knows if he'll stay off the weed? But The Baltimore Ravens, no quarterback. Their owner said that their head coach is going to get fired soon. Jim Harbaugh, or John Harbaugh, his time there is just about running up. You have no quarterbacks. You don't have great running backs. Your receivers are all old. Your tight ends are question marks. Your offense in general is a complete dumpster fire. It's terrible. Unless you somehow want to start Robert Griffin III, Lamar Jackson, the NFL's going to catch up to Lamar Jackson. He is not a long-term solution by any means. Your general manager is retiring. The Baltimore Ravens are going completely downhill. They are going downhill, and they're going downhill quickly. Let's hop to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is embarrassing. Why did they ever hire Marvin Lewis back? Why haven't they fired him yet? Andy Dalton is exactly the same as Matthew Stafford. He's complete trash. He is horrible. You have Joe Mixon at running back. You actually have pretty decent personnel on the defensive side. For some reason, your defense now sucks. Your chemistry, your personalities, like you bring in Burfict, you bring in Pac-Man Jones, all these problems, and then you have Marvin Lewis. Your team is probably the biggest dumpster fire in the entire NFL. You have no identity. You have no quarterback. You have absolutely nothing but a terrible, terrible owner, and you're watching across the state as Cleveland is actually getting their shit together with Baker Mayfield, John Dorsey, a good young defense, a lot of talent, and Greg Williams. So Cincinnati, you're in a pile of crap. All right, so Ventura thinks that Lamar Jackson is the next Michael Vick, and he thinks that their defense can still be good. The difference with Michael Vick is Michael Vick was an amazing thrower of the ball. He had one of the strongest arms I've ever seen. He can make any throw. I don't think Lamar Jackson has that big of an arm. I don't think he's that consistent of a thrower down the field. I want them to take the training wheels off this week. I really do. So I mentioned Dolphins, Ravens, Bengals. The Broncos are not terrible. I'm going to go with the New York Jets for the next teams that need changes. I don't believe in Sam Darnold. I'm going to be the first guy off of the Sam Darnold bandwagon. I don't believe Darnold's very good. The head coach is not good. The defense is very good, but they need Le'Veon Bell. So the Jets aren't that far away. The Arizona Cardinals, have a terrible head coach. The Cardinals have a questionable quarterback that I'm not willing to say is going to be a bust yet. But the Cardinals, their defense is getting older. Their defense is getting terrible. Their offensive line is really awful. They don't have a lot of talent there, and Arizona doesn't have the right head coach and GM to make it happen. I think Steve Wilkes is going to get fired eventually, maybe in year 2. I don't see him getting any better. I think they should fire Wilkes now. I have less confidence in Steve Wilkes than I do Matt Patricia. I'll tell you what other franchise I was going to mention. A lot of people think that the Oakland Raiders are one of the worst franchises in the NFL, but I disagree. I think that there's a lot of hope in Oakland. You have 5 picks, and you have 5 first-round draft picks in the next 2 seasons. That's unbelievable. You don't know where Dallas is going to finish this year. You can possibly get your defense to play a lot better. You get rid of your quarterback in Derek Carr. You got rid of Reggie McKenzie, which was the necessary move. So the Oakland Raiders are doing things the correct way. They're giving trust to their head football coach, John Gruden, who evaluates a lot of tape. There needs to be one voice in that organization. The Oakland Raiders will be on the ascension. I'm telling you, I have faith in John Gruden. The key for Gruden is he needs to move on from Derek Carr. He can't continue to believe in Derek Carr. He needs to move on from that quarterback, period. And you need a young, dynamic quarterback in Oakland. Carr sucks. Next few teams we can talk about. All the Florida teams are not very good. Jacksonville, I told you that they would come crashing down. Doug Marrone is going to get another year there in Jacksonville. He needs to find a way to get a competent quarterback in there. I'd look at maybe bringing in Davis Webb to Jacksonville and starting that thing with Jacksonville. Get a good leader at the quarterback position. Jacksonville, another team. Tampa Bay. Dirk Cutter is probably not going to make it out of this year. Jameis Winston is not very good. The defense, I think that this roster is still more talented than the production it gets. I love their defensive line. I like Carlton Davis. I like MJ Stewart. I love their linebackers, okay? Quan Alexander's a big-time player from LSU. Levante David is a big-time player from Nebraska who's shown that he can play in this league. I think that the Bucs have a lot of talent defensively. They have Gerald McCoy, Vita Vea. Vita Vea at the 13th pick, he needs to step up his shit. He needs to be a good football player. When you take Vita Vea number 13, he better be a home run hit. You better hit that pick, Tampa Bay. Vita Vea better be good with Gerald McCoy, and they haven't been that good this year. They also have Jason Pierre-Paul, who played his ass off this year. He had a great season. So for Tampa Bay, they are close. If they get the right quarterback in there, if they make the right decision at head coach, like maybe they promote Todd Monken to their head coach, they can actually make a splash. I totally see Le'Veon Bell going to New York as well. Le'Veon Bell is going to want $21 million a year. Quarterback money. That's what he's going to want, John. I could see him going to the New York Jets for sure. So those are the franchises that I have that need help, that need replacements. The Denver Broncos, that's another franchise that I think is going to move on from Vance-A-Lot Joseph. And that's kind of my opinions on what franchises need a lot of help. I appreciated you guys coming into the stream. It was fun having Pigskin Pete. It was also fun recording this video. You guys have a good rest of your Fridays. Let's talk real soon over the weekend. We'll see.